everyone. By the way, I am Jervel Matugina and we are the Group 5. Right now, we're going to tackle to you about logic and reasoning. What is logic? Logic can include the act of reasoning by humans in order to form thoughts and opinions, as well as classifications and judgments. Logic can be defined as the study of truths based completely on the meanings of the terms they contained. Also, logic is a process for making a conclusion and a tool you can use. Sa madaling salita, if we say logic, it is a study or a process of correct thinking and reasoning. The foundation of a logical argument is its proposition or statement. The proposition is either accurate, true, or not accurate, false. So, ang argument daw is either accurate or not, or either it is true or false. Premises are the propositions used to build the argument. So, if we say premises, ito yung mga argument to prove its point. The argument is then built on premises. So, if we prove our point, we are necessarily dealing with arguments. Then, an inference is made from the premises. Finally, a conclusion is drawn. So, if we say conclusion, ito yung what we conclude from those premises. Generally speaking, there are 4 types of logic. First, informal logic. Second, formal logic. Third, symbolic logic. And last, mathematical logic. Informal logic. Informal logic is what's typically used in daily reasoning. This is the reasoning and arguments you make in your personal exchanges with others. Also, ang informal logic is wala siya nagasupport og evidence. So, example, premises. Nikki saw a black cat on her way to work. At work, Nikki got fired. So, the conclusion we have here is black cats are bad luck. Since it is an informal logic, as what I said kanina, there is no supportive evidence na na-fired si Nikki because of black cats. So, parang daily reasoning lang natin na kapag may makita tayo na black cats, malas na agad. Explanation: this is a big generalization and can't be verified. So it means that the premises at yung conclusion natin was not accurate and false. Formal logic. In formal logic, you use deductive reasoning and the premises must be true. You follow the premises to reach a formal conclusion. So unlike sa informal logic, ang formal logic naman is supportive with evidence. So, it clearly states a reasonable conclusion. So, example, premises. Every person who lives in Quebec lives in Canada. Everyone in Canada lives in North America. So, the conclusion we have is every person who lives in Quebec lives in North America. And yes, it is true kasi Quebec is one of the province in Canada and Canada is a country in North America. So, naa siya'y proof or evidence. So, you can search it in the Google. Explanation was only true facts are presented here. So, it means that the premises and the conclusion was accurate and true. Symbolic logic. Symbolic logic deals with how symbols relate to each other. It assigns symbols to verbal reasoning in order to be able to check the veracity of the statements through a mathematical process. You typically see this type of logic used in calculus. So, symbolic logic, so from the word symbol, so nagadeals talaga siya sa symbol. So, just like the example. Symbolic logic example. Propositions. If all mammals feed their babies milk from the mother, A. If all cats feed their babies mother's milk, B. All cats are mammals. C. The A means and the symbol means implies. So the conclusion we have is A and B implies C. The explanation was proposition A and proposition B lead to the conclusion C. If all mammals feed their babies milk from the mother and all cats feed their babies mother's milk, it implies all cats are mammals.
So the four types of logic is the mathematical logic. In mathematical logic, you apply formal logic to math. This type of logic is part of the basis for the logic used in computer sciences. Mathematical logic and symbolic logic are often used interchangeably. So to further explain this, it is the subfield of philosophical logic devoted to logical systems that have been sufficiently formalized for mathematical study. So one of examples of the mathematical logic is the truth table. So we are sorry for not included here in our slides the example, but I am going to discuss to you what is the truth table method. So truth table method is one of the decision procedure for sentence logic. The method is based on the fact that the truth value of a compound formula of sentence logic construed a truth function is determined by truth values of its argument. So there are two types of reasoning, the deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. So first, let's discuss the deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning provides complete evidence of the truth of its conclusion. It uses a specific and accurate premise that leads to a specific and accurate conclusion. With correct premises, the conclusion to this type of argument is verifiable and correct. So there are three examples. 1. Premises. All squares are rectangles. All rectangles have four sides. Conclusion. All squares have four sides. Second example. Premises. All people are mortal. You are a person. Conclusion. You are mortal. Third example. Premises. All trees have a trunk. Have trunks rather. An oak tree is a tree. Conclusion. The oak tree has trunk. So as you observe, the deductive reasonings comes from general argument to specific conclusion. And also, the premises or the statement 1 is very logically true, and the conclusion of this is realistically true. So to further explain this deductive reasoning determines whether the truth of a conclusion can be determined for that rule, based solely on the truth of the premises. So another example, when it rains, things outside get wet. The grass is outside. Therefore, when it rains, the grass gets wet. So as you observe, it is literally true that when it rains, the grass gets wet. Because in the first statement, when it rains, when things outside get wet, and also the grass is outside, so in conclusion, if there is a rain, then the grass get wet. So it was both of them are logically true. Mathematical logic and philosophical logic are commonly associated with this type of reasoning. The second reasoning is the inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is a bottom-up, meaning that it takes specific information and makes broad generalization that is considered probable, allowing for the fact that the conclusion may not be accurate. This type of reasoning usually involves a rule being established based on a series of repeated experiences. So, example, premises. An umbrella prevents you from getting wet in the rain. Ashley took her umbrella and she did not get wet. So, conclusion, in this case, you could use inductive reasoning to offer an opinion that it was probably raining. Yeah, so here's the explanation. Your conclusion, however, would not necessarily be accurate because Ashley would have remained dry whether it rained and she had an umbrella or it didn't rain at all. So, excuse me. Um, if you observe in inductive reasoning, it was came from a specific argument to general conclusion. In statement 1 or the premises, it was logically true, but in conclusion, may or may not be true kasi um as you observe in the example, an umbrella prevents you from getting wet in the rain. Ashley took her umbrella and she did not get wet. So maybe you could give your opinion to that. It's because whether it rained and she had an umbrella or it didn't rain at all, Ashley would remain dry. So that's the meaning of inductive reasoning. So to further explain more, inductive reasoning attempts to support a determinations of the rule. Its hypothesis is a rule after numerous. Examples are taken to be conclusion that follows from a precondition in terms of such rule. Example: the grass got wet numerous times when it rained. Therefore, the grass always gets wet when it rains. This type of reasoning is commonly associated to generalization from empirical evidence. While they may be persuasive, these arguments are not deductively valid. So, to summarize the deductive and inductive reasoning, um, when we say deductive reasoning, it was the premises and the conclusion is both logically true or realistically true because it came from general argument to a specific conclusion rather. And inductive reasoning is um, the premises is logically true, but when it comes to conclusion it will be may or may not true. So it was came from a specific argument to general conclusion. So yun yung kaibahan, yun yung distinctions between deductive reasoning at saka inductive reasoning.
Fallacies.
As human beings, we have brains that enable us to reason in a logical manner and create valid reasons, differentiating us from different kinds of animals. It happens, though, that sometimes we are in our reasoning. This may be due to hosts of reasoning like our emotional state, ignorance, biases, and others. When this happens, we become vulnerable and commit flawed reasoning. In the realm of logic and reasoning, we commit fallacies. So what are fallacies? In general term, a fallacy is an error in reasoning or it is a faulty reasoning. We all have committed using fallacies that are deceptive or wrong argument. So there are many fallacies and those are first, argumentation against person or the argumentum ad hominem. It is when the arguer attacks the person rather than the person or the opponent's ideas in order to arrive his point. Or instead of finding fault in the claim, proposal, or argument, the arguer directs his attack on the character, personality, or belief of his opponent. Like for example, in the debate, instead of attacking the opponent's claim, you are attacking the opponent's itself. The next one is the argumentation that goes in circle. It is the circular reasoning. When the argument is restated rather than proven or the arguer evades the real conclusion by stating the same conclusion in new words making the reasoning circular. Like for example, the 18-year-olds have the right to vote because it's legal, and it's legal for them to vote because they are 18 years old, or simply you're just restating the statement. The next one is the non sequitur or it does not follow. It is there is no connection in the claims or does not follow what is being discussed. It is often found in everyday conversation or the arguer draw a conclusion not supported by premises or fails to include assumptions that establish connections between ideas. Like, for example, when someone asks, "What is the title of the movie?" Then you replied, "There is no English subtitle." So there is no connection on what is being asked and what is your reply to the question. The next one is the argument that uses flattery or praise, and it is also known as appeal to vanity. In this argument, instead of presenting evidence or good reasons, we use praise to get what we want, to make others agree with us, or to seek approval of our arguments. Like, for example, when the student flattering the teacher on her interesting lecture just to ask her if she can extend the deadline of the homework. So, you are praising someone to get what you want.
So in this part, we'll be talking about argument that appeals or to force or threat. So that's the first one. So this argument, one uses force to threat instead of reasons, maybe physically or physiologically. So this is when an arguer points out the negative consequences of holding the contrary position. So common example of this are chain letters saying if you don't forward this in to your 30 friends, your family will die tomorrow. So that uses force to threat you, maybe physiologically. So another example is when an arguer say, "Believe in what I say, or else something bad will happen to you." So it uses threat to convince you do something. Next is the hasty generalization. So here, the arguer makes a conclusion based on a few instances or even from one single instance only. From one sample, the arguer makes a claim about the whole population. So, drawing a conclusion based on a small sample size rather than looking at statistics. For example, is making first impression. Most people are making first impression on someone they just met based on their appearance, their fragrance, age, even their names and where they came from. For example, dito, a lady saw a group of stinky and noisy teenagers while walking on a town. Therefore, the lady concludes that all the teenagers in town are stinky and noisy. So, this is when someone generalized the whole population because she saw someone na with that characteristics. So, next is the argument from ignorance. This is arguing that because an argument proved the argument to be false, therefore it is true. Or it is false because it hasn't been proven true. For example, in a courtroom, the arguers say you can prove that they're innocent, therefore you are guilty. So in this scenario, they are saying that the suspect is guilty because she can prove herself to be innocent. So another one is the bandwagon argument. So this argument appeals to the beliefs of prejudice of the crowd, or it justifies that might is right and many people cannot be wrong. This is widely used in advertisement and political campaigns. So this asserts a claim is true because many people believe it is. For example, a scenario of person saying, "Many people believe in ghosts. They must be true." So you haven't seen a ghost, but many people believe. So the arguer claimed that the ghosts are true. Or another example is when a driver say everyone was speeding, so I shouldn't get a ticket. So it's saying that it says that everyone was doing it. I shouldn't be punished because of also doing the same thing.
Appeal to pity. Instead of presenting relevant and strong evidence or reason to support our claim, we resort to invoking pity or sympathy by pointing or referring to an unfortunate circumstance that has befallen us. For example, nag-reason ka sa teacher mo that you lost connection. So you didn't take a quiz, but the truth is, you fell asleep. Appeal to unqualified or inappropriate authority. This is fallacy committed when we cite the opinion or judgment of someone who commands respect and reverence, but who is not a recognized authority on the subject or who is prejudiced in some way. We use that person's reputation or status, even though out of place, to get support for our claim. This is, ito yung reasoning na yung pinapaniwalaan natin in terms of opinion and others. For example, all of you are answering na quiz. Then, yung kilala nyong matalino is sinabi niya yung answer niya or opinion. So, because he is known as a smart student, everyone immediately believe. Fallacy of decision. We argue that what is true of a whole or class is true to every member. Ito is, for example, there is a trouble in the class, then nagtanong yung guidance na what was the true happened. So, if what was more agree in reasoning, that would be the most trusted. Red herring. In this argument, instead of addressing the matter under consideration, the arguer introduces an unrelated or irrelevant matter to draw the argument away from the real issue. Ito yung type na reasoning na dinadivert yung issue sa iba in order to aside from the real issue. For example, in a simple situation, sa isang mall, there is a child that want a toy. Then, gusto niyang bilhin yun. Then, the mother said, "Baby, let's go home. Daddy prepared a yummy treat for you." So, yung mother is trying na ibahin yung topic ng kanyang anak. And last, what is new is good. The arguer contends or make a case on the belief that what is new is good. In my own understanding, kung ano yung right or wrong ng arguer, and kung dedicated siya on what was he or she believed, it is automatic good for him or her. And that's all for this report. Thank you.